All right, welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalks. So this one, we are going to be going over workspaces. This is a pretty simple, light one, but it's actually pretty important. So, okay, so let's hop on over to Blender itself and get started. All right, so across the top, as we have mentioned a few times before, these are your workspaces. There's layout, modeling, sculpting, UV editing, all the way down to scripting, and this last tab allows you to add a new workspace. Each workspace has a context menu. If you right-click, there are a couple of things you can delete it, duplicate it, reorder it, change it, change the tab order across the top, and you can move workspaces. The shortcut is Control Page up and down, and that will move you left and right through the workspaces. Edit source, that's not something we need to worry about right now. And header, show menus, all that does is turn on and off this little menu bar over here. Okay, the default workspace that you have when you open Blender is the layout workspace, and there are 4 main editors in this workspace. There's this big center one. This is your 3D view workspace. This is your outliner up over here. Okay, this is your properties, or your properties, and then your timeline across the bottom. Although it's, when you first open it, it's fairly kind of shrunk down here at the bottom, but this is your timeline used for working with different frames of time in your animation. All right, let's go ahead and introduce you to some of the main, the default Blender workspaces. So you already know layout. We just talked about that. Modeling, this is where you're going to do most of the geometric modeling, where you're going to work with your geometry tools, which are, whoops, crap. These guys all along the edge here. Sculpting allows you to manipulate your geometry with brushes, which is a different way to go about it, but it's very useful in different ways. So you can grab a brush and kind of manipulate your mesh. Next one over is UV editing. If you don't know what UV mapping is or how mapping works, it's basically just unfolding your geometry so that it is laid out in a 2-dimensional sort of way. This way you can overlay images and patterns that you can fit to the geometry, and then it will show up over here. All right, the next one is your texture paint. This is just what it sounds like. This allows you to paint it and manipulate the way it appears in a few different ways, actually, but we will get to that later. Shading. The shading workspace allows you to manipulate the materials of your objects. So like turning something into glass, or causing something to be reflective, or whatever. I mean, there's an incredible array of manipulations that you can do to materials. So that is your shading. Animation, it's just what it sounds like. This is where you animate things. You'll notice that your timeline has been popped up a little bit. That gives you a little bit more access to that. That's the gist of that one, I guess. Rendering, this is where you will render your scenes, or time-specific snapshots of your scene. But yeah, this is kind of where all your rendering tools are. Compositing. Okay, compositing is where your post-processing takes place, and we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail later as well. Let's see. Geometry nodes. Okay, geometry nodes. This is where you are manipulating, your object's specific nodes in very detailed ways. You can manipulate very specific aspects of the nodes and how they work and interact. Again, much later. Then scripting. This is kind of my home base. This is where you can I don't actually use this editor. I pump it over to a different editor or an IDE. I've got them interlocked and very. I'll probably do an extra video outside of the Docwalks on doing that. But yeah, this is where you kind of deal with scripting, working with scripting, and that's that's about it as far as that goes. Okay, let's jump back over to the layout workspace. When you add a new workspace, it'll give you options. There's already some kind of predefined workspaces that you can use. So like 2D animation, your 2D animation, 2D full canvas. These are really similar. This one's, this one's just, the canvas is a little bit larger. There's, these are your generals. There's sculpting and VFX. You know, there's quite a few different ones. You can duplicate them. You can just do a whole bunch of stuff. You can make your own, you know, just adding your own editors and everything. Right. Okay. When you save your .blend file, or when you open a .blend file. So basically, when you save a .blend file, all of that stuff is baked into that file. Okay, all of your workspaces, all of their settings, that is all going to be saved in your .blend file. If you go to open a file, head over here to the to your little options gear. You'll notice a tick mark for load UI and trusted source. This is for running scripts that, well, basically running Python scripts that you've included in your file. But load UI, if you turn that off and then open something, if you've altered the workspaces or configured it to be, you know, a specific way, that will not come through. So keeping this ticked on will ensure that, you know, all of the alterations you've done to your workspaces and how you have your UI set up will come through. So that's pretty much that. All right, and last but not least for this particular document, if we come over to our preferences, or I'm sorry, not preferences, our properties, and this first tab up here, you see, that is Active Tool and Workspace Settings. If you click on that, these are, here's your workspace right here. Go ahead and open that. Yeah, so that's pretty basic mode, whichever mode you want to, you know, have tied to that particular workspace. You can filter your add-ons, or not just filter, but also, you know, add or remove filters for your workspace, or add-ons for your workspace, sorry. And you can also add custom properties. All right, so that is it for this one. That was the Workspaces document, and let's go ahead and move on over. See you guys in the next video.